Hi everyone, Dr. Syra here, Naturopathic Doctor at Vitamart.ca. In today's video, I am going to be reviewing the new documentary, The Game Changers. So this documentary has created a lot of buzz in the media. It's also created a lot of controversy, and it's really convincing if you don't have a background in nutrition or research. So for those of you who have not had the chance to see this documentary yet, it was released in September of this year, and so that's 2019. It follows around a former UFC fighter, James Wilkes, who, while recovering from an injury, travels worldwide and interviews many doctors and elite athletes who follow a plant-based lifestyle. And so the reason that this documentary has created so much buzz is because of big name producers like Jackie Chan, Arnold Schwarzenegger, and James Cameron. And so this documentary advocates that a plant-based lifestyle has superior benefits to overall health and athletic performance. And so today I'm going to just be going over this documentary. I want to make it very clear before I start that I'm not taking a stance of being an anti-vegan or an anti-carnivore. I simply want to review some of the points that were brought up in this documentary and shed some light on them before everyone jumps on the bandwagon of becoming a vegan or a vegetarian. Documentaries should really be presenting both sides of the picture, which is something that The Game Changers really fails to do. I also believe that instilling fear when it comes to eating creates a negative aura around food, and this documentary really demonizes meat. Eating healthy really involves balanced eating and eating nutritiously instead of really removing whole food groups when it's just not warranted. So before we start, I want to kind of clear out some definitions with you guys. So the first one is a plant-based diet or lifestyle. And so a plant-based diet really encourages whole plant-based foods, and it limits meat, dairy products, and eggs, and also limits refined sugars. A vegan or a complete vegetarian diet really excludes all meat and all animal products. It also does not encourage whole foods, and it also doesn't limit refined sugars and processed foods. So something I find is that a lot of people will use plant-based and vegan or vegetarian diets interchangeably, and that's what happened in this documentary. So if you notice, when I started off this video, I said that James Wilkes follows around elite athletes and doctors who follow a plant-based lifestyle, and I use quotations. And that's because really in this documentary, they keep saying plant-based. However, meat is completely excluded, and so is animal products. And by definition, that is a vegan or vegetarian diet. Okay, so I'm going to be bringing up 8 points that they brought up in this documentary one by one. So the first point I want to bring up is it's really important to recognize the voices that you're listening to in a documentary. So when you are reading a research paper that has been published in a reputable journal, there are protocols in place to make sure that authors are disclosing any organizations that they are involved with, so as to minimize any bias. Now, this protocol is not in place for documentary. So one of the big producers in this documentary is James Cameron, and he's famous for movies like Titanic and Avatar. What most people don't know, though, is that he is the owner or the co-owner of a really big organic pea protein company called Verdant Foods. So as well, other doctors and elite athletes have their own source of bias. So Arnold Schwarzenegger is known as a passionate, famous vegan person. Also, one of the doctors in the book, Dr. Robert Bogle, he wrote a plant-based book. And so really, this documentary does not disclose any conflicts of interest, which really should be the first thing that should have been done. So point number 2 is quality of studies that were used in this documentary. So throughout this documentary, you will see articles pop up on the screen. What most people don't know, though, is that he is the owner or the co-owner of a really big organic pea protein company called Verdant Foods. So as well, other doctors and elite athletes have their own source of bias. So Arnold Schwarzenegger is known as a passionate, famous vegan person. Also, one of the doctors in the book, Dr. Robert Bogle, he wrote a plant-based book. And so really, this documentary does not disclose any conflicts of interest, which really should be the first thing that should have been done. So point number 2 is quality of studies that were used in this documentary. So throughout this documentary, you will see what we really need to realize is looking at the type of studies that they used. So majority of the studies that were used to make the conclusions in this documentary were observational studies. And so in nutrition, this means that authors will observe what people ate and then look at the health outcomes that came out as a result. And so observational studies are great for showing a correlation or an association between two things, but it doesn't necessarily mean that there is a causation. So in the context of this film, what that means is that being a vegan or a vegetarian, yes, is correlated and associated with maybe better health outcomes and better overall athletic performance. However, one thing does not necessarily cause the other. Also, some of the other studies that were used were pilot studies, and they had really, really small sample sizes. And often it ended with further investigation is necessary. So the illusion of all these articles that they used to make the conclusions that they did in this documentary makes it seem a lot more reputable than it actually was. So point number 3 is that a big notion in this documentary was that diet is the only way to achieve overall health and better athletic performance. So yes, diet plays a massive role in one's overall health and athletic capabilities. However, it's really important to address other factors like sleep quality, stress levels, and training frequency. And all of these play into how one performs athletically. And so diet plays one piece in the overall puzzle of health, wellness, and fitness levels. So point number 4. It is stated in this film that plant-based sources of protein are more complete sources of protein and they are better quality. So here's what the research actually says. PDCASS, that is Protein Digestibility Corrected Amino Acid Score. And so this score tells you about the quality of a protein, and it takes into account amino acid composition as well as digestibility. And so a score of 1 is a perfect score, okay? So milk and eggs have a score of 1, beef has a score of 0.92, and when you go and look at vegetarian sources, beans, for example, has a score of 0.54, and lentils has a score of 0.53. So there are 20 amino acids that the body can use to build protein. Of these 20 amino acids, there are essential and non-essential amino acids. And so non-essential amino acids can be made in the body, whereas essential amino acids need to be obtained from the diet. And so in order for a protein to be considered complete, it needs to have all of the essential amino acids. And so when you're looking at a complete protein, you're looking at mostly animal sources of protein like milk, dairy, also some plant-based sources like quinoa is considered a complete source of protein. Non-complete sources of protein do not have all of those essential amino acids, and these are most vegetarian sources of protein. And so in order for a vegetarian source of protein to be considered complete, you need to combine multiple vegetarian sources. And so just want to say that vegetarian sources of protein are not necessarily better quality, nor are they complete sources of protein. So one more thing I want to mention in regards to this is that in this part of the film, they say that one peanut butter sandwich is equivalent to about 3 ounces of meat, which is about 20 grams of protein. So in order for this to be true, that would mean that you would need to put 5 tablespoons of peanut butter in this sandwich in order for it to equate to the amount of protein that's in 3 ounces of beef. Point number 5 is the endothelial function test. So in this part of the film, they test the blood of 3 Miami Dolphin football players, and they assess the endothelial function. And so the endothelium lines the red blood cells. When it is damaged, it can put you at a higher risk for developing cardiovascular disease. And so what they do is they feed these 3 players breakfast burritos. 2 of them got animal-based protein, and 1 of them got a plant-based protein. And so when they looked at their blood after, what they found was that the animal eaters, their blood was more cloudy than the plant-based eater. Now, what they didn't take into account or they did not assess is hydration levels. They didn't address history of cigarette smoking, alcohol use, past medical history, any other medical conditions. And endothelial function is affected by hydration, oxygen concentration, blood volume, and diet. But when it comes to diet, things like processed foods, sugar, high refined carbohydrates, all of those foods also can have a negative impact on endothelial function. As well, during this part of the film, they state that plants have a positive effect on endothelial function, whereas animal proteins have a negative effect on endothelial function. Now, when you actually go to look at the studies are saying that plant-based foods that are high in antioxidants, like pomegranates, green tea, you can also look at black raspberries, blueberries, apples, all of these foods do improve endothelial function, but none of them say that animal protein needs to be eliminated altogether. So eating higher amounts of fruits and vegetables, yes, has a positive effect on overall health, but does eating meat here and there negate these positive effects? So point number 6. The film states that vitamin B12 can be obtained from more than just animal sources. And so in nature, bacteria synthesize vitamin B12. However, unlike animals, we are never eating anything that's unwashed, and therefore we're not really getting vitamin B12 from plant-based sources. And so one thing that this film does say is that if this is something you're worried about, you can always supplement with a good quality vitamin B12. This is true, and it's especially true if you are following a plant-based diet or you're a vegan or vegetarian. So point number 7, none of the studies actually say that you need to stop animal protein when it comes to heart health. So when you actually go look at the studies that were used in this part of the film, they all say that yes, higher plants are going to be very beneficial for conditions like obesity, type 2 diabetes, and cardiovascular disease. However, none of them say yet again that you need to stop animal protein altogether. These studies also acknowledge the fact that lifestyle changes like quitting smoking, a little bit more exercise, and stress management can all work to reduce your risk of developing heart disease. So point number 8, which is also the last point in this video. So in this film, they equate cigarette smoking to eating meat. So what I want to say is that there has been a causation that has been established from cigarette smoking to cancer. However, only a correlation has been established from eating meat to cancer. And the study that they used to talk about this correlation was done over a 6-year period, and it was done in a very low-risk population. So what they found was that there was a high risk of colon cancer in people who ate more meat, but these people also had lower legumes and they also had a higher body mass index. The study ended with the conclusion, and I quote, "Both red and white meat intake is an important dietary risk factor for colon cancer and raised the possibility that the risk is due to a more complex etiology." And this more complex etiology is really referring to the refined carbohydrates that you were eating with the meat, okay? So obviously, if you ate more processed meats like hot dogs, sausages, KFC, cold cuts, McDonald's, all day long, this is going to make a huge difference. These products are salted, they are pureed, and they are processed. So processed meats, they're known to have a higher amount of nitrates, and nitrates have been linked to cancer. So switching from a diet that is high in red meat, processed meats, prepackaged foods to any other diet, be vegan, vegetarian, or keto, you are going to notice better overall health and better athletic performance. So if we just cut out the pizza, the muffins, the donuts, the sodas, all these high sugary foods, and just adopt a healthier lifestyle, is meat really the problem? When you focus on more fruits and vegetables, you are going to be reducing the amount of processed foods you're eating, high sugar foods you're eating, high fried foods you're eating, and all the trans fats. These are the foods that are our problem in today's society. These are the foods that can lead to inflammation in your body. Diet changes should really be about including healthier options into your diet versus omitting whole food groups. So eating more plants is a great thing, but scaring people into it is really not the answer. And so finding ways to incorporate more fruits and vegetables into your daily routine is a better way to go about it. And so examples would be making sure you're having fruits and veggies at every meal, or making sure that half your plate is always vegetables at lunch and dinner. So we need to focus on eating more healthy, whole foods, and more plants and occasional amounts of meat, eggs, and dairy. And so this type of lifestyle is also known as the Mediterranean diet. So the Mediterranean diet is a whole foods, plant-based diet where the foundation is plants, but it also allows for poultry, seafood, some meat, cheese a couple times a week, and then it really limits your red meat and your refined sugars. So there's been a lot of research on the Mediterranean diet and showing how it's beneficial for lowering blood pressure, lowering cholesterol, lowering blood glucose levels for diabetes, and also for obesity. The best part about the Mediterranean diet, or rather lifestyle, is that it doesn't really restrict foods. It really just tells you how often you need to be eating certain foods. So overall, I felt like this film made it seem like you only had two options, either to eat meat or to not eat meat. They kept referring to plant-based diets as vegans or vegetarians, when in fact a true plant-based diet is not so black and white. A healthy plant-based diet requires planning and discipline. It requires eating lots of fruits, lots of vegetables, legumes, nuts, seeds, and limiting meat and animal products, not excluding them completely. So I hope that this video provided you with some insight and helps you make an informed decision before you start switching up your diet. So if you guys are an Ontario resident and want to learn more, click the link down below to book your free 15-minute consult today. So give this video a thumbs up and leave your comments down below. Thanks, guys.